Shane, thank you. We've dumped the news so we could talk to you early. I know you've got a plane to catch. Look, a couple of things I wanted to cover off from you and from New Zealand First. First up, your impressions, given the rather curious speech by the Maori King in English at the end of the big hui over the weekend. What do you think was achieved there?
Well, I don't want to be churlish. It was a great turnout in terms of... No, I mean, the number of people that turned out, I was a tad surprised to get that many. I do think the king has never been an orator, and you're always taking a risk when you get a highly passion-driven crowd, and at one level you're trying to remain aloof from the cut and thrust of politics, and at another level you're trying to give a sense of direction. What I think the gathering lacked was a clear, lucid set of navigational markers. In another 14/15 years will be 200 years since the Treaty of Waitangi was signed. And the people who are leading the various hapu and iwi need to be focused on what is it that they want to see as a contribution to what is a rapidly changing New Zealand society. And that never emerged.
All right, so it was a lot of hui and maybe not much dewey or not much direction. The other, or the next big event, and if you like the Māori calendar, in a national sense and in public perception sense, is Ratana tomorrow, though the celebrations have begun. The big day at Ratana. Debbie Ngārewa Paka says Te Pāti Māori, which represents 2% of the electorate on last year's election result, is going to attend with the kingitanga movement at Ratana, which would appear to be a break from tradition, Shane, a politicisation of the kingitanga movement.
Look, I warned several weeks ago that the kingitanga has to remain aloof from the bear pit of parliamentary politics. But at the end of the day, they'll make their own choices, but those choices will have consequences. And it's highly, in my view, unhelpful for something like the kingitanga to embroil itself in parliamentary politics. In relation to what the Māori Party are saying and doing, they're like magpies. They'll run around trying to capture or pick silver, shiny things. And secondly, they're looking for an echo chamber. So they'll attach themselves to any single Māori event where they feel they're either relevant or the level of influence they have can be maximised. And nothing they're up to either surprises me or, quite frankly, bothers me, because once the rest of the country get focused on the state of our economy, the need to deal effectively with the cost of living, the crumbling nature of our key infrastructure, the loud, discordant voices coming from the runangas will fall back into their rightful place. Only one of a set of considerations that a modern government in New Zealand has to address.
All right, New Zealand First, of course, will be at Ratana. What do you expect to happen there?
Well, the Ratana leader, otherwise known as the Māngai, he was the mouthpiece. You may recall there's the famous story when he presented 4 items in front of the former Prime Minister Savage. One was a potato, one was a broken watch, one was a greenstone pendant, and the other was the huia feather. And he said the broken watch reflects the special laws that have to be attended to and repaired, like the narrow and obscure skills of a watchmaker. And if you do that, we will adorn you with the greenstone pendant and you will wear the huia feather, sign of a high chief. And that was the pact between the Ratana Church and Michael Savage in the 1930s. But underlying that is a profound desire to use democracy, to use politics, to effect an improvement in the lives of the whānau of that time. That is what's different between what the Māori Party and many of the iwi sovereignty activists are talking about. They don't want to use the popular sovereignty of the voter. They want a different system, and that's why New Zealand First is never going to arrive at a point where we're going to dilute the power and the overarching decisive influence of popular sovereignty as reflected through voting.
All right. What do you think of the proposals for legislation that have mooted? And National say, well, they will support the first reading, though they are being somewhat ambiguous about what happens or what National's policy would be after that.
Well, obviously, we never campaigned on a referendum. We did campaign on ensuring that what references there are to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, we can understand them. I mean, it is preposterous that you can twist the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi to prevent the mining of iron sands 37 kilometres off the coast of Taranaki. That's just using the treaty as a ruse, and it's using the treaty as a foil to stop mining and to halt the development of a modern economy. So that's just a small example of the types of things that New Zealand First wants to tidy up. I haven't seen this paper. Look, the paper that's written that's been leaked would have been, as I said, the dribblings of one or three bureaucrats. By the time it gets to the ministers, it'll be tidied up, but it's a big wake-up call for the Chief Executive Officer of the Department of Justice that he or she is overseeing work of such sort of defective quality. And quite frankly, that leaked document would have featured as a manifesto coming out of a sort of strike-torn blooming location, which is not New Zealand.
Yeah, well, as a journalist, I must apologise on behalf of my colleagues, though I'm not responsible for the way that story's been covered because it has been totally accepted on face value as to what it was, and I understand it is just a working document that hasn't been before a minister or before cabinet yet even.
No, I've never seen it. I doubt if Minister Goldsmith has seen it, but I'm quite confident that the Chief Executive Officer will get a stern talking to, because we can't have documents of that nature informing debates and informing the creation of options. So I can't really comment on what will be the final shape and form.
Shane, I'm conscious that you are pushed for time. I do want to ask you this. In regards to the referendum legislation, I'm getting the message from you that whilst a referendum in itself, which attracts all sorts of comment and raises all sorts of fears and controversy, might not be New Zealand First policy, you are not against the concept that we need to define, if there are principles to the treaty, what they are and how they might be applied in the governance of the people of this country.